Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with guest mentor Hammad Siddiqui, who's going to share some of his journey from going from business into exports and finance and a whole bunch of different things in his career, and then ending up as the LinkedIn guru. So, Hammad, if you want to start off with telling us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll get into your background shortly after.
Thank you, Luki. It's such a great pleasure to be on your show and talking to the audience that we have out there. So, Hammad Siddiqui, I grew up in Pakistan, spent my early career in Pakistan, stayed there, but then worked in about 10 countries later on with 10 nationalities, ethnicities, linguistic differences, and all that. So, that is fun. I'm based in Canada now. I'm in east of Toronto and spend my morning cleaning snow, as most of us did. Um, and I'm actually building up my coaching business, literally pivoting from my very extensive career in trade development and institutional capacity building into more nitty-gritty of coaching thing and LinkedIn and working with new immigrants in Canada and in the US is the focus. And there are companies also that I'm training and coaching on how they can use LinkedIn optimally.
That's amazing. So, if we can delve a little bit more into that rich history of the 10 countries and all of that, and maybe a little bit earlier, but like, what were
Yeah.
you like as a kid? So growing up, were you kind of shy, introverted, or were you outgoing and active? And what were some of the influences along the way as you were growing up?
Yeah. I think I was a destructive kid.
Okay.
Uh, I think destructive is so I was very inquisitive. I really wanted to know how things work. So I would get these toys, these aeroplanes and these small, like motor-driven cars. I would play with those cars, and the inquisitiveness was that how does it work? How this car works? And I would open it up. So I would actually break the
Right.
car, really, just to find out what's inside the car which makes it move. So I was labeled as a destructive kid in my during my childhood, and I was not an introvert. I would jump into things. I would experiment with things. I would always get a shout from my father as to what the hell are you doing? No, don't do this and that. Uh, but again, this was. I think it was good because I was trying to learn new things, but I think I was uncontrolled at times in getting into things which would actually had put me into life-threatening situations also. For instance, putting your finger in the electric socket kind of a thing. So, or jumping in the pool of water after midnight, or not midnight, after dark, and nobody would know that I was there. It was my cousin who kind of ran and brought my father. He took me out. I was already drowned in the water. So I would do things which would probably hurt me also. So I was uncontrolled, as I say, growing up. Um, but that kind of inquisitiveness continued throughout my life. I really wanted to know, and it was much later than I actually read somewhere that you're one of the most intelligent thing that you can do in your life to grow is to figure out. If you
Sure.
have the capability to figure out, you will make it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, and that's definitely a trait where, unfortunately, in a lot of today's society, it's almost the opposite, where parents kind of coddle and almost saran wrap, bubble wrap their kids a little too
Yeah.
much, where they can't do anything, and that breeds a bit of a culture of fear of failure, and then most folks. They can't. So when they get out in the real world, then it's a struggle when they don't get the job, they don't get the promotion, they don't get the whatever it is they're supposed to have, and sometimes jumping in the pool after dark, although I don't necessarily recommend it, might have been a good thing to do, at least the equivalent to do in right now. But so tell us more about some of the influences growing up. So you ended up in business, and how
Uh,
did that come around? Is that more parental influence, or just the folks around you, or did you just magically come up?
Yeah, I think it was a mix of few things. My father always wanted me to become an engineer, and that was the in thing. And in my society at that time, either you become an engineer or a doctor, or you do nothing. So,
All right.
so I studied pre-engineering until my high school. I went into my BSc engineering, but I hated it. I hated physics and stuff like that. So, and I think it was a time when I started talking to people. So one of my, so I used to play cricket, right? You know,
Mhm.
cricket is the game for South Asians, right?
Sure.
So one of my friend who used to play cricket with me was elder than me. He was in chartered accountancy, so he was like doing his horticulture, and he did his bachelor's of commerce. Then he went to his horticulture. So I spoke to him. I said, no, this is my issue. I don't like what I'm doing. I don't like studying chemistry and physics. But I'm more inclined towards like looking at things at like a more practical perspective, you know, something that I can see. And so he started talking to me and said, you know, this is how accounting works, and this is how what economics means. You know, this is how businesses do. This is what entrepreneurship is, and that really inspired me. And I switched. So I studied BSc engineering for about one semester. Then I switched into business studies and did my bachelor's of commerce. Uh, and while I was doing my bachelor's of commerce, I got that fascination towards economics.
Hmm.
Although a lot of people at my age during that time would think that economics is a very dry subject, there's no fun in it. But I really liked it because I could then apply all those economics principles of economics onto real life as to how price mechanism works and all that.
So
So I really liked, yeah.
before we go there, I wonder what was the conversation like with mom and dad to let them know that you were switching? Were they pretty supportive, and was it easy, or was it because you mentioned that you either become an engineer or doctor or
Yeah,
nothing else? So how does that conversation turn out?
I just did that. So I switched and I told them that I really don't want to do engineering. This is not my piece of cake. I really want to go into business studies, and I mean they were okay. Probably they didn't like it, but they didn't. They really wanted me to do something. So if I was doing Bachelor's of Commerce, I was still studying. And in South Asian societies, or in all the Asian societies, you know, education and university level education is something that all the South Asians and nations would go into. So for them, okay, he's not doing it, but at least he's in the university, he's studying university education, so that's why.
Right. It sounded like you at least had a path, you had a plan, so you might not be the next doctor or engineer, but at least you were in business at a university level. So
Yeah.
cool, makes sense. So you got into economics, business, and finance. Was there a particular like course or discipline that you found along the way that you really gravitated towards?
Yeah, so I really like macroeconomics
Okay.
because you see, I mean, in macroeconomics, micro also, but more towards macro because you were looking at policy side of economics. So that really inspired me that you can actually, through policies, you can actually turn around the economy, a country's economy, or scale it down to and implement more or less the same philosophies and principles on businesses also, and turn businesses around. So the turning around part of this uh, macroeconomics was really inspiring for me. So I kind of slowly went into and uh, found opportunities also within the same field as I moved along.
Cool. And so walk us through kind of your university journey and then kind of graduating and getting a job. Was that easy, difficult? Like how was the business climate? Was it pretty straightforward to do that, or did you have to jump through some hoops in order to get
Yeah. So I think I was someone who, as I said, who would like. I mean, in today's terminology, I was outgoing. So I would
Sure.
still go out and meet people. I was not shy to express myself. I was not shy of learning things and accepting that I don't know this. Can you please help me do this kind of a stuff? So I never was shy of asking for help, and that really because people don't know. I mean, if you don't know something and you don't ask for it, people would not know,
Right.
and that really helped me build my some kind of a trust, if I may call it. I was very young in a very closed society, but I kind of still built up my references and network, and I kind of met people who I learned from at senior level. But my first job was a salesman, so I really was not shy of doing anything. I was just jump into it, as I said, jump into the water after dark kind of stuff. So that was first thing that came in my way while I was still studying to work as a salesman. I said, let's experiment with it because I'll be able to kind of interact with people more frequently as a salesman. You talk to, and I learned a lot of things. So how do you look into eyes and how do you smile? How important it is to smile? Your facial expressions, your body language, all that counts a lot. Uh, and when I went for my first like a formal job, if I may call it, I was already ahead in the game because
Okay.
I knew all those tricks. During the process, I started writing small bits and pieces in newspapers. So kind of this is what I say. You have to kind of um, outshine somehow. And these like I did not know that it would help me. I was just doing it. But when I went for my first major interview, which was at the British Consulate's office in Karachi, my first big job that I did in a big organization, I was successful in amongst 210 candidates, right? So because I had collateral to show them, rather than just passing the test, I had all that collateral with me. I had my articles published in newspapers and stuff. Um, and most of that stuff was on economics and kind of or in within business environment,
Cool.
and yeah,
So it sounded like after graduation, well, in school, even in a business school, there's no real courses on sales, right? So you really have to go out there and learn yourself. So
yeah,
part of that, your jump into the pool after dark was the experimenting and learning on the fly. And then by doing that, that puts you ahead of other folks because, yeah, if nobody's teaching you sales and you don't experiment and figure it out yourself, then you're not necessarily gonna learn, and then use that to your advantage to kind of get the next role. So yeah, keep us going in terms of the journey. So you're out, you're doing sales. Sales is kind of your first big job or first formal job, and then how did you proceed from there?
yeah. So the next big job was working with the British government, British Consulate's office in 1990, which really transformed me into what I am. I mean, the transformation continues throughout your life until
Sure.
you die. But that was like the real transformation because I was in an environment which was like a knowledge environment.
Mm,
Yeah. So you're working with like foreign diplomats and you're interacting with very senior level business people and travel because I started traveling since. So I joined in 1990 and 1991 was my first travel outside Pakistan. I went to the UK for a training. Then from UK, I went to the US to meet my friends there. So it was like traveling really opened up my opened up my mind. Traveling teaches you a lot. You're working in different cultures or walking around in these streets in Washington D.C. How different it is from walking around in your own town and stuff. So that learning continues, and I kept implementing whatever new ideas came in my mind. I never was shy of implementing those ideas, and or even like suggesting new ideas. So not only I'm implementing it, but I would suggest those new ideas to seniors also within my circle, and that really helped me push very quickly from a very junior position to mid-level manager position, literally in 2 years' time. And next 3 years' time, in 1995, I became head of commercial operation for Pakistan for British government. So I was literally the man people would look at. And I was very young. I was still like very, very young, 30 years of age. And I was the youngest senior commercial officer in the whole diplomatic community, the British diplomatic community around the globe.
Wow.
So it was, I mean, I did not know that, to be very honest. It was the British Foreign Secretary who told me. His name was Sir Michael J. And how I met him was another story. I was nominated as amongst we had a think tank, internal think tank within the British Foreign Office of all the uh, locally engaged staff. So I was one of the locally engaged staff within Pakistan, right? So the think tank was of like 200 locally engaged um, people, quote unquote, they would call brilliant, I think.
Sure.
They put them in, they put them in a conference every year in their head office at 1 Victoria Street in London for 3 days. And the conference that I went to was presided over by Sir Michael J, who was the Foreign Secretary, very senior person. Okay, so Jack Straw was the Foreign Minister. So you can imagine the kind of conference that was. So I was amongst the first two, amongst those 200 people who were part of it. So I was the youngest. So I realized only when I was there in that big hall with 200 people, 199 people were older than me. And
You were the
sir,
kid in the room, right? So
I was really, 30, it's still 30 years of age, but for a foreign office staff, somebody coming to that conference at the age of 30 was very, very young. So Sir Michael J actually spotted me, came and met me. He knew because he was like a very, very tall gentleman. And he met me and he said, "You know, you are the youngest commercial officer in our team across the globe at this moment." So it was like kind of you feel good when somebody at this level recognizes you in a crowd of 200, right? So and there are like other stories also. I met the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. I was part of their entourage as the only local staff who was part of it when she came to Pakistan in 1997. And I mean, those 17 years I spent at the British uh, Foreign Office are fascinating. Like, it's the real learning how things work or don't work. How do you make them work?
mm. So what were some of the highlights? So give us maybe one or two highlights of that career, and then what did you do afterwards?
I think I kept growing from 1995 until 2006. I really worked on the trade policy between Pakistan and the UK. We grew investment, UK investment in Pakistan in millions of pounds sterling, with power plants coming in and stuff. So I mean, I can't. It's very difficult to pinpoint exactly, but when you're working with global companies like International Power and facilitating their process of establishing a power plant in a country, there is a lot that goes behind it, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of negotiations between the G2G, government to government negotiations. Then, the joint venture partner, B2C and B2B negotiations, working with financial advisors. Or, I mean, of course, I did not work directly with them, but I was part of those meetings, and then I was like on the receiving side of it, so that I know exactly what is happening and reporting it back to London, to the head office. This is happening, uh, kind of helping, taking their help officially to the Prime Minister's office. A letter. Okay, let's do a letter to Prime Minister to have this facilitated. So all those like pinpointing those moments which really require your attention and intervention to make things happen. So this is just one example. There was another big transaction of Standard Chartered Bank that went through during my process, and there were like ICI soda ash plant. ICI used to be one of the largest chemical company in the world. It is now like broken down into like smaller companies, but they brought in a huge investment into soda ash plant. So I mean, I could go on, but like these were like major things. And again, like it's taking small delegations to UK and working with Chamber of Commerce in making sure that the delegations would actually get benefit of there being in the UK, you're spending taxpayers' money. How are you spending taxpayers' money, and be accountable for.
Sure.
So I think so. If I could put it in a short sentence, I learned how do I find those opportunities, act upon those opportunities in a very timely manner, and learned a lot about negotiations and working with people and listening. I think listening and focusing are some of the things that people don't really understand how to, but I think in that environment, these were like the real thing that I learned of this whole capabilities that you can develop. I think these were the two I would pick up with the focusing and the listening part of it.
Sounds good. And what I probably took out of that as well is developing a lot of the relationships, because even though that was a fixture of how you got into it beforehand, I'm sure the relationships you built also helped you throughout that whole thing. And was there any of that led to kind of the next adventure for you? Because you spent a lot of time in the government, but how did you end up transitioning to something else?
Yeah. Um, so just kind of because I kept experimenting with myself, so I knew that I can mentor people. I think I knew that. So I would still work with young people, spend time voluntarily in helping them in their career transition. Like at coffee meetings, and I would just invite few people whenever I'm traveling to other cities to come and join me, and that actually helped me build network and relationships. And of course, when you're at a position when you don't really need a lot of help from people, people would still want to help you because they really want to feel kind of pride in connecting with you. They really like it. So that really helped me build my uh, social capital into into media, into television, business community, chamber of commerce, government ministries. So I could get things done like this. Pick a phone, talk to someone, and it will be done. I knew that if this person can't do it, he's going to refer me to someone who would be able to do things,
Sure.
which was great, right? I was not using like I never needed it for myself, but for my work.
Mhm.
But transitioning into the new job or the next job in 2006 happened probably because I had that network. So
Mm.
so this organization that I worked until March 2020 is one of the largest private sector capacity building not-for-profit organization in the world, and it's U.S. Chamber of Commerce affiliated organization called Center for International Private Enterprise (CIPE). So they poached me because they were establishing an operation in Pakistan to help private sector grow through policy reforms. And now look at the links. My studies, the passion that I had, economics and policy level work, uh, my knowledge of working with government and how policies actually are formed, private sector driven policies or working in the intersection of private sector and the government helped me get into this job. And I
Mm.
never applied. They poached me because they knew me. The country director knew me already. So he spoke to me and he literally poached me, come and work with us kind of a thing. And I think I was already thinking about it because I had already done almost 17 years in an organization. I had grown to a level where which was like almost uh, the level one could even dream of, and there was no I could still like gain salary raises and stuff like that, but there was no growth after that.
Mm.
So I would call it a difficult decision in like literally 10 seconds. So he offered me and I said yes, I would like to experiment. And I moved in. And when I shared it with my wife, this is what I'm going to do. She was like, "What the hell are you thinking of? Why do you want to move? It's such a nice job." Um, I said, okay, it's a nice job, but I think I need to explore more. I'm still very young, well, quite young, and I should really be doing more. Push myself or raise my bar, as I say. So I moved to a brand new organization which is establishing its kind of presence in the country. and even there also, it was just kind of an exponential growth that I experienced. And just because, I knew people, so I went in and I was like ready to reconnect with people, and we connected in a way that we actually took that project from $200,000 project to $1 million project in 2 years' time. So yeah.
That's amazing. So you have two very successful career paths, or I guess from the government and then this not-for-profit organization, doing a lot of great things, learning exponentially, and then you transition over here to what you're doing now, or is there something in between, or how do you get to kind of this next stage of your career?
Uh, so so no, from SIWIKE, the last organization that I was in, I was with them. So I actually worked with them for almost 14 years, a little
Right. Yeah.
over 14 years. In 2016, yeah, 2016, they decided to reconsider their presence in Pakistan. So I was based in Pakistan, but I was working on their projects in 10 different countries. So I was flying most of the time from one country to another country to implement the program. So, um, uh, and they usually do not stay in the country for more than 3 4 years, but in Pakistan case they stayed for 14 years. But in 2016 they started looking at transiting into another country, and Philippines was their next target country where they wanted to establish. I never wanted to go to Philippines because my family would not. I knew that they won't be able to adjust into a very very different environment, and my daughters were born here, and we were in Canada, and me and my wife actually migrated into the year 2000. So working in North America was nothing new to me. I mean, I knew the culture. I worked with an American organization for so long. So we decided to. I said, okay, why don't we take this as an opportunity to move to Canada? Right? It's like I knew that I would be reinventing myself yet again uh, at this age. But I was like, what's wrong with it? I think I've done it before. I know I'll be able to do it again.
Right.
So we moved to Canada in July 2019, like packed up and
Mhm.
moved, and until March 2020, I was still full-time employed with this US organization, wrapping up their projects that I had remotely from sitting in my home in Ajax. And parallel to that, I had already started thinking to get into coaching business, and particularly focusing the immigrants community, because I know they come in and they suffer. They come in with a lot of qualifications and experience and everything, and they suffer a lot in Canadian work environment. And the biggest reason for that, they have never been to this part of the world, so they do not really understand job search dynamics. There's so much to learn at that age, and because a lot of immigrants come when past 40 years, right? So that's the time when you are already kind of there's a decline. I mean, that's the reality. There's a decline in your learning when as you grow in your age. Um, so that's what I was thinking. Why don't I help them understand the importance of LinkedIn as a platform to kind of excel, network, and build their social capital again in the new country. Um, and so I slowly started rolling it out, not kind of officially talking about it, but I started doing some training sessions. There was pre-COVID time, so I could actually do training sessions and use my things that I had been doing, working with young people throughout my life, coaching and mentoring and social media marketing and stuff, whatever I had been doing, kind of translate into a different language really for a different audience. Um, and then we had COVID in in April, and we were literally shut down for almost 6 months. Um, uh, but I think about the time when I really focused a lot on online presence, and that actually started giving me business opportunities. So, and again, my original thought that I would probably find a lot of business in Canada was wrong, proved wrong. Uh, I had and have business in Canada, but a lot of my clients are outside Canada, in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, for instance, and UK, Switzerland. So what made me realize is that it's a global village. The word of global village is this is what it is. You will doesn't really matter wherever you are based. You can literally reach out to people globally.
Sure.
So really focused on that, and now I have contacts almost all over the world. Australia, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, you name it. If you want to connect with anyone anywhere in the world, I think I should find one person that I can connect you with.
That's amazing. So, if we were to kind of wrap things up and get some of your SWIKE, the stuff I wish I knew earlier. So, if you were to give yourself some guidance when you were younger, whatever high school, university, in any of your bigger jobs, or even to someone coming in interested in getting into any of the career paths that you mentioned, or even some LinkedIn guidance,
Yeah,
what's some of the SWIKE that you'd share with folks?
yeah. I think well, there could be quite a few pointers in it because I grew up when there used to be just one television channel, right? So there was no computer at that time. Computer came in, well, in my country, computer came in 1988.
Hmm.
So you can imagine, or 1986, rather, yeah, 1986. So anybody growing up in current age have different issues as compared to what I had.
Sure.
Um, but I think two things are very, very important. One is your language skills.
Hmm.
I studied in Urdu medium, so I studied Urdu language. English was just a secondary subject for me. So you have to build that skills, language skills, which I had to build. Like I worked around my language skills later on, and that's why I speak decent enough English language. I write decent enough English language. So your ability to communicate is the ability that takes you from zero to hero.
Hmm.
Um, when you're communicating, which means that you're not only talking, you're listening, you're observing, you're articulating, you're thinking. So it's a combination of so much. So had I known it like when I was like growing up to do it more strategically, I would have grown much faster.
Hmm.
I have no regrets. I have no regrets. I think I've been successful in my career as compared to my classmates in my high school or even in my university. Uh, but this is one thing that we must try to learn at a very early age. Who teaches you to focus? I mean, people say, okay, focus, focus, focus. I always say focus, 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 thrice, but nobody teaches you how to. How do you learn focusing? And listening, whoever has the gifted capability to hear thinks that he is or she is listening, but listening is an art. It has to, it's something that one should learn. Once you do that, then you start articulating, you start properly communicating, and that actually helps you a lot in your
Sure.
career. Also, I know you shared your story. I think
Yeah.
sort of communication that really plays a really really vital role.
What's something tactical that someone could do right now to improve some of their communication skills, either from the listening side or the hearing or the thinking while they're doing it? What's a tactical piece of advice that someone could start doing, if
Yeah,
not now, then shortly thereafter?
yeah. So I always recommend starting low,
Okay.
starting from somewhere. And if we divide your whole communication strategy into focusing, listening, articulating, and writing, just implement that. Focus means that anything that you really would like to learn or communicate to other people. So it could be chemistry, it could be physics, it could be business, it could be finance, it could be investment, anything. That should be a focus, which means that you will have to learn a lot about it, read a lot about it. Then you have to start listening things, what other people are saying. People listen to podcasts. But focused podcasts, not everything. Uh, you can't really do everything and excel in one thing. If you are into everything, then you are not excelling.
Sure.
And then start articulating. Okay, focus, listen, and then articulate. Okay, this is what it means. This is how it can help others or myself also, and then start writing about it. So if we follow these four things, you will outshine automatically because nobody is doing this.
Mhm. So it sounds like it's putting in the time, putting in the effort to constantly improve every day. Try to be 1% better than you were yesterday, or at least 0.5% or whatever it is.
Yeah,
But the point is to learn, listen, experiment, because you might get it wrong,
yeah,
you'll probably know how not to do it. It is when you do it incorrectly, and then figuring out, okay, in this particular context, it's how to do it. So that's great. What was the second thing? So you mentioned that communication and language is
yeah.
the most important. And what was
Networking,
networking?
networking, yeah. Networking, and my style of networking is helping other people rather than taking help from other people.
Right.
So today only I launched something very exciting,
Mhm.
which is I would want to share your stories on my LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So, so Luki, if you have a nice story, if you want me to shout out for you, I will provide you a few pointers, a short story, bullet pointed. I will rewrite it and I'll put it out there for you.
Sure.
Um, so I launched it like this morning only, and I already have two stories. Two people have already sent me those stories, and I think I'll probably have. um I had like five people responding, like a couple of hours ago,
Cool.
and I'm just so far I have eight responses, and two people have sent me stories. So 10 people in the last 3-4 hours have reached out to me. So this is the power of social media. People connect with you, uh, and you can then help them expand their network.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that networking sentiment. Too many people leverage it as a transaction. I usually compare it to hunting versus farming.
Yeah,
Most people, when they network, they hunt, right? They want
yeah,
the elephant, the whale. That's not a recipe for sustainable success. It might work for that one transaction, but after you kill the elephant, it's gone. Right?
yeah,
They're not going to reciprocate. But if you start off with helping and saying, "Hey, I'm going to share your story. Well, what do you want for it?" Nothing. Oh,
yeah,
what? then,
yeah,
then people are first taken aback because they're wondering, well, what do you mean? How much is it going to cost later on? And then once they get past that, then they realize, wow, this person is here to help, and then they almost feel guilty for not
yeah,
helping you later. So I think it's definitely great, and that little investment can go a long way. Where it might not help you now, but it might help you in a few months, 2 years, 2 decades, or whatever it is. And yeah, that networking and who you know can often reap so many rewards later on. So yeah, that's definitely great advice. So what are some of the future aspirations that you have? So now that you're building your LinkedIn community and all these different offerings, are there any little projects other than the one you just mentioned that we can look forward to?
I mean, the only passion that I have in life, passion about my career, if I'm still quote unquote, is to really build my own coaching business, and particularly focusing on helping people in their career development using LinkedIn as a platform.
Right.
It's not only about creating a profile; it's about being out there and being seen as a subject matter expert. This is what you need to do, which people don't. I mean, LinkedIn's own data suggests that only about 5% people understand how LinkedIn works,
Right.
and they keep it secret. So, which means LinkedIn keeps it secret. That's how they make money, right? Which is okay, and people come and experiment. Some people don't experiment. Um, so I kind of I'm trying to break those chains for people who are interested, and I really want to be. And I don't know. how it sounds in the Western culture is that people are fleecing people, right? For this work. I know people who are charging as much as $1,500 to fix a LinkedIn profile. 1,500 US dollars, by the way. So it's about 2,000 Canadian dollars, if you put it this way. Now, how many people around us would actually cough out $2,000 in this economy? I mean, okay, they've been out there and doing it for many, many years, and they can charge that kind of money. But that is not actually helping masses. So I've just rolled out a program last week, training. It's an 8 module training program, 8 weeks, 1 hour every week, for 149.99 US dollar, which is 200 Canadian approximately. And anybody who's joining in can actually experience much more and will be more hands-on in his or her LinkedIn profile as compared to paying somebody $2,000 and having it fixed. So I really want to build that I don't know, call it an academy or and it's a new thing. Hammad Siddiqui, just a small fly on the wall at the moment, but I'm still getting traction. I've got a lineup of people who are interested. In last 1 week, I've got over 100 people who have shown interest
Great.
in that program. Now, not everybody is going to join in. Not everybody is going to pay. This is how business happens. You build your funnel and people, and somehow they trust in me, or they've been following me. That's why they've shown interest. And of those, almost 7 or 8 have enrolled so far. And I want to keep it like 10 people for 10 participants in a session, which could be multiple sessions if I have 50 participants.
Sure.
But this is my ambition. This is what I'm planning to do. I'm implementing these ideas, and I'm learning along. It's happening. Things are happening around me.
That's perfect. So it sounds like exciting things up in the works, and I wish you all success for that. And we'll link folks obviously to your LinkedIn for folks that want to reach out, and hopefully we'll have you back for more topics and insights, because it was interesting going through your career path, and I'm sure if we can delve deep into things like LinkedIn, some secrets, or different areas to grow, or even we didn't even talk about you and EduShapers and some of the other
Yes.
on as well.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Yeah.
we'll have you back for another episode. And is there anything else that you want to say before we head out?
I have authored 3 books already. So these are 3 books in the pipeline, which we can talk about later on also. So this is fun talking to you, Luki, and I'm sure I was able to add some value to the thinking process for anybody who's looking to advance in their career, whether you are at the entry level, or you're just getting out of university or college, or you are at mid-career, stuck in mid-career, or you're senior manager. It's some of the very basic strategies. If you put those strategies in place, you will outshine. You will outrun your competition.
It's perfect. So thanks so much, Hammad, for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you back in a future episode.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.